Hello and welcome back to the NFL Quick Talk podcast. As always, you can find the show on YouTube and Spotify. Subscribe and follow. And if you're new to the channel and new to the Friday Five, this is where we take the top five games going into this weekend and analyze, break it down, all under 15 minutes, and give you a score prediction for that as well. And if you're a returning viewer, thanks for coming back and share with a friend. We're trying to hit 100 subscribers to the channel. With that being said, let's get right into it. And going to our number five game of the week, the 2-1 Buccaneers travel to New Orleans to play the 2-1 Saints. Both teams sit at the top of the NFC, South division. The Saints are favored by 3.5 points, and the winner of this game will be the front runner in the division. For the present moment, the Panthers are 2-1, I think, and the just off the top of my head, and the Falcons are also 2-1, but they have a tougher game that we'll preview next. And really, whoever wins this is going to take, a bigger stand in the division. If the Saints win this, I think that it's a much more assuring win. I think I would be a lot more confident in the Saints winning this division. If the Bucks won this game, I would not be as confident in them winning, but I would still just get they've been really gaining my trust over these past 4 weeks, even with the beatdown of a loss last week, which we'll discuss that right now. The Bucks, they suffered that slow beatdown. They lost by 14, but they were hanging in there, hanging in there. It's 13-3 at halftime. The Buccaneers offense really didn't come out and play all that well, and it wasn't until with 9:22 left in the fourth that they got their first touchdown of the game, and it was really a 25-3 affair until that point. And the Eagles, the slow beat down that they usually give teams, they just score points gradually over. They play 4 quarters. They're a great football team. And it really took them down a notch, and it showed that the Buccaneers still have a ton to prove. And on the Saints side, will Derek Carr be available to play their quarterback? He's a stud. He's not the greatest in the world, but he's a stud. And he's not been ruled out yet. He's right now he's projected to not play, but there is still that chance that he plays because it's late in the week now as I record this Thursday night into Friday morning, that he does play because he hasn't been ruled out yet. And he has been limited in practice, but Jameis Winston, the backup quarterback, has taken the majority of the reps. And, he really stunk up the joint once he came into the game after Derek Carr got injured. And to give a score projection for this game, I'm going to give you guys two. If Derek Carr does not play, the Bucks will win by 10-14 points because the Saints offense looked abysmal. They threw away not 14, excuse me, a 17-point lead to the Packers in the fourth quarter after Derek Carr left, and that was mainly because the offense was just going 3-and-out, 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 right? And so if he doesn't play, then I think the Bucks win by 10-14 points. If Carr does play, it was really a toss-up game for me, and I think the Buccaneers still win, but it's by 3 or less points, and I could definitely see the Saints winning if Derek Carr plays. And at the number 4 game of the week, we have the Falcons at 2-1 going to the Jaguars, who are 1-2, except they will not be going to Jacksonville. They will be going to London to play this game at 9:30 Eastern Time Zone, and Jacksonville is favored by 3 points. And this game, overseas games can get pretty crazy. Last year, you had the dysfunctional and terrible Broncos who couldn't manage the clock worth a darn, go into this London game versus the Jaguars and beat them 21-17. And that's a Jaguars team that went and, won their division. That loss was one of their 5 or 6 losses all year. And the Broncos, ended up basically having the flipped record, as the Jaguars did. So really, these games can get out of hand and these games can get crazy. So they're very hard to predict. And just another case in point, you had the Germany game last year with a not very good Bucks team beating a pretty darn good Seahawks team 21-16. And, these games, they're crazy, but I do think the Jaguars offense does get right, and this game is a little bit more high scoring than how they have been playing. They threw up a single digit offensive play. They were playing at like what 9 points versus the Chiefs, and I think that they will play a lot better than they did then, and I think they come out and win by 6. Before we get to our number 3 game of the week, I would like to remind you guys to please subscribe down below. It's really easy and it really does help out the channel a ton. And so, we're trying to hit 100, and please do that as well if you're not already. And our number 3 game is the 0-3 Broncos at the 0-3 Bears. The Broncos are 3.5-point favorites, and the Broncos as a whole are leaps and bounds way more better coached than the Bears are. The Broncos, led by the Hall of Famer himself, Sean Payton, and they're just, when they have their scripted plays, they look pretty decent on offense. They score points, and that is something that the Bears can't do. And the Bears can't play defense either. So the Bears can't play offense and defense by simple math and logic right there. The Broncos win, and for me, the Broncos are winning by 10 to 17 points. I don't think this game will be close, and I think the Broncos notch their first win and get a little bit of hope here to go into Week 5. At our number 2 game, we have the Ravens going to Cleveland to play the Browns. Both teams are 2-1, and the Browns are favored by 2 points. 3 points at this time. And this game is very interesting because both teams are 2-1, but really at times have looked like an 0-3 team. The Ravens, with all their injuries, I mean, literally, I think half of their starting lineup is injured, banged up. And I'm not quite sure who's going to go and who's not because it's so hard to keep track of because there's so many names. And I do think that, injuries obviously will play a big factor in this game for the Ravens, especially, Odell Beckham Jr. looks like he'll be out long term, and that's a key weapon in the wide receiver room. He really helps gel this team together, helping young guys like Zay Flowers, who looked a lot like the young Odell Beckham Jr. And, Lamar, he needs those pass catchers out there. And on the Browns side, you know, they looked like hot garbage versus the Steelers. Their offense did at least, but they've had 2 convincing wins versus the Titans and the Week 1 versus the Bengals, and their defense has definitely looked top 3. Their defense is unbelievable at this point. Don't know if they can really keep that up or not because their secondary has a tendency to be injured. But I mean, the Browns defense really matches up well against the Ravens offense. They're really strong in the trenches. Linebackers a little bit weak, but they have played up to way past the standard um, through these past couple games. And then their secondary really hasn't had to do much because their front seven has been so good. And, the Ravens are a team that wants to run the ball, but 2 of their 3 running backs have been injured. J.K. Dobbins is out for the rest of the year, and Gus Edwards has been banged up as well. And even when he is playing, he hasn't really played that well anyway. The Ravens' offensive line has taken some hits, but it is still leaps and bounds better than the Titans' offensive lines. The Titans' offensive line, I think, ranks in the 30 to 32 range, which is the worst in all of football. And the Ravens' offensive line is still, I think, in the upper half, even with all their injuries. So I think that it's a really good test for the Browns to see if their defense is legit in the trenches at least. Flipping it around, the Browns offense has been up and down, to say the least. Like I said, they looked terrible against the Steelers. They looked pretty efficient versus the Bengals, but we now know that the Bengals defense isn't the best, And and the Titans last week, they started to look like they were a pretty darn good offense that last week. You have Amari Cooper, who is the best route runner in the league, and you have other weapons like Donovan Peoples-Jones, and you got to use them. And because, Jerome Ford is not going to get it done in the backfield. So this game could play out a ton of different ways, but I do have the Browns covering and winning by 4 to 7 points, especially being at home. That really does help. And our number one game of the week, the game of the week, is the Miami Dolphins traveling to Buffalo to play the Bills. The Bills are 2.5 point favorites. Miami is 3-0. Buffalo is 2-1, and Miami is coming off that blowout, to say the least. I mean, they won by 50 points and they scored 70 points, and they look like they have all the answers on offense. Tua's an MVP. Devon Achane is Rookie of the Year. Tyreek Hill is Offensive Player of the Year, and the whole offense as a whole. I mean, Miami's going to the Super Bowl. Miami's winning the Super Bowl for the first time, and yet there's a little piece inside of me that says, "Hey, wait a minute. Buffalo's not a bad team. It is. Why are we picking Miami to win every single? Why is everyone single person picking Miami to win? It is in Buffalo. Buffalo is known to have the craziest and some of the best fans in the league, in the system, in pro sports. They're some of the best fans out there. I love you guys. And I mean, Buffalo is not a bad team. And I mean, they steam after that one gaffe in week 1 with the Jets on Sunday night. It was raining, it was weird, and it was week 1. And week 2, they absolutely steamrolled the Raiders, 38-10 from what I remember. And then they went out and they absolutely destroyed a halfway decent Commanders team, 37-3, and they did not hold back. So this team can score. And this team can play defense too. The Commanders' offense isn't half bad. The Raiders' offense, they have studs everywhere, except for Jimmy Garoppolo. But that being said, I mean, Buffalo, I don't think they cover. I don't think they cover 2.5 points. And I'm surprised that they're favored. But there is a very likely scenario that all the hype that Miami's getting, all the hype, just, gets flushed down the toilet. Just like, I mean, national media will have this team going up and down all season. If they lose, they'll be coming down hard because we have put Miami up on this pedestal that we really shouldn't have in the beginning. I mean, 70 points is 70 points, but we're in week 3. And, I mean, we give them all the credit that they're due, though, right? I don't want to sound like a Debbie Downer on Miami. I think they're a great football team in the moment right now. They're an elite team right now. But will they maintain that elite status on Sunday when they're playing in Buffalo against this very solid Buffalo Bills team with a high-octane offense and a pretty darn good defense? And I mean, Miami had legitimate struggles 2 weeks ago against the New England Patriots, winning by only 7 and only scoring 24 points. Although there are some teams that could kill for 24 points right now. But that's beside the point. So I do see Miami winning this game, but I see them winning by 2 to 3 points, and there's a very, very real possibility that the Buffalo Bills end up winning this game. And but this game should be fun to watch. 2 very high-powered offenses, 2 defenses that are more than capable of making stops. I would definitely watch this game, and I probably will be. And if you want my reactions to this game, among others, check out my reaction videos. They come out most every Monday night and going into Tuesday. And I will see you guys in the next one, which would be that week 4 reaction. So make sure you're tuning in for that one. And I will see you guys on the flip side.